This is pretty crazy. Cloudflare just built a brand new web browser specifically designed for AI agents, and they did it in Rust. The best part is they wrote up a technical blog post explaining exactly how and why they did it. And the engineering approach they took is actually very forward-looking and exciting, or terrifying, depending on how you look at it. So let's go through this post together. So the Cloudflare team just launched Kitesurf, the agent-first browser that runs in V8 isolates on Cloudflare Workers. Now you might ask, why would Cloudflare build their own web browser? What is the problem they're trying to solve? What is the differentiating factor? And are they really trying to compete with browsers like Firefox or Chrome? In their blog post, they say that Browser Run, their headless browser automation API, has seen tremendous growth with the rise of AI. Agents need browsers to perform many tasks, and oftentimes they cannot succeed without a browser. But there's a problem. Browsers like Chromium were built for humans, not agents. And that means they come with a lot of overhead that AI models don't need. This includes consuming so much memory and compute that running an instance per agent is prohibitively expensive. And so the goal for Cloudflare is to give all agents a browser that excels in what's important to AI models, even if that means not being ideal for humans. So no, they're not trying to compete with the browsers we use day to day. They're making a browser specifically for AI agents, a browser that prioritizes what AI agents need, and they give some examples here. They say that AI agents don't need tabs, themes, or browser extensions. Agents care more about token counts, context windows, scalability, performance, and costs. Agents also care about structured, machine-readable content, and not so much about the visual UI. And also the threat model for AI agents is a lot different. AI agents have to care about things like prompt injection and tool safety as a top priority. Which is why Cloudflare decided to build Kitesurf, a new browser that runs entirely on top of their Workers platform. Now the interesting thing is how this idea first came about. So the inspiration actually came from an existing browser optimized for AI agents called Obscura. Just like Kitesurf, it's a headless browser meant for things like web scraping, and it's actually also written in Rust. So one day, one of the Cloudflare engineers posted a link to Obscura and said, "This is interesting." And then this sparked some discussion about porting it to Workers. And the way they did that is actually with the help of an AI agent. At first it didn't work that well, but once they gave the AI a solid plan and a clear definition of success, they were able to get a prototype working. And they were so blown away by the barely working prototype that they decided to let the team implement it for real. So here are some design decisions they made in the actual implementation. The first one was to add a lot of tests. This was really to make sure that any code that AI writes was validated against a robust test suite. They tested Kitesurf against the Web Platform Test Suite, which is an open source set of browser tests to make sure browser implementers are implementing things correctly. In addition to that, they also ran multi-step puppeteer tests on real websites and compared the results to Chromium. Another engineering decision they made is to use Rust when possible. And by doing this, they got to use performant Rust packages that compiled down to WebAssembly. Also, because they used native Rust whenever possible and compiled directly to WebAssembly, they were able to avoid unnecessary emulation layers and run as close to the metal as possible reliably. Additionally, they paid close attention to exception handling and isolation, and they tried to make components stateless whenever possible. Here you can see an example of how they implemented security and isolation, where all internet requests, whether they're coming from the engine or page script component, go through the single sandbox outbound component which checks for cores, headers, cookies, etc. So the Cloudflare team has been working on Kitesurf for about 12 weeks, and here are the results. Right now, Kitesurf passes over 215,000 web platform tests, and the test coverage is growing. Here we can see a chart of the number of passing tests. Now the other interesting part is the performance. So here's a chart breaking down the performance between Kitesurf and Chromium. When it comes to CPU usage for screenshots, Kitesurf uses 3.1 times less CPU than Chromium. For HTML extraction, Kitesurf uses 3.8 times less CPU than Chromium. For screenshots, Kitesurf also uses 4.7 times less memory than Chromium, and 7 times less memory than Chromium for HTML extraction. Now, on the other hand, Chromium is still 1.x times faster when it comes to screenshot speed, and 1.7x faster when it comes to HTML extraction. And this is because the Chromium just-in-time compiler has already seen the web page, as opposed to Kitesurf, which has to do a cold render. With that said, this is something the Kitesurf team is looking to optimize further, and you can try out Kitesurf right now in their browser run platform. The other great thing is the Cloudflare team is planning to open source Kitesurf once they're ready, which is hopefully soon. In general, it seems like there's no shortage of software tools being built or rewritten in Rust, especially in the areas of dev tooling like Python tools or JavaScript tools, to cloud infrastructure software like Firecracker for AWS Lambda or Pingora for Cloudflare. And the infrastructure which powers AI is also being written in Rust, as we can see here in the Kitesurf example. Now, the other interesting trend we're seeing is the use of AI to rewrite or port software to a different language. And for some reason, that new language seems to be Rust a lot of the time. And I think this makes sense because, one, Rust has a lot of built-in guardrails, which the AIs can leverage. And secondly, Rust helps you build very reliable, robust, and performant software. Now, as we saw in the Kitesurf example, and also in examples like the bun rewrite from Zig to Rust, AI can be very helpful with the initial rewrite, but you also need a team of software engineers to take the prototype and actually ship something to production. All that to say, I think there's a lot of opportunities for developers who are proficient in Rust and systems programming. And if you're interested in learning how to write production-grade Rust, check out our Rust Lab Accelerator. It's our tailored mentorship program where we help developers go beyond YouTube videos, write production-grade Rust systems, and land their first Rust job. You can join the waitlist for the next cohort by heading over to letsgetrusty.com/join, or by clicking the link in the pinned comment below. When you join the waitlist, we'll also send you our Rust developer roadmap as a small gift. So tap the link, join the waitlist, and I'll talk to you very soon.